Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to connect some really important dots. We're looking at these key thinkers you've been studying.
That's right. From the social contract guys, Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, and that whole island activity idea.
Right, designing society from scratch.
Exactly. And then moving on to those superhero scholars like Montesquieu, Voltaire, Wollstonecraft, even Kant.
And then we'll broaden things out even more, looking at some foundational figures in science.
Yeah, our goal here is to really zoom out a bit. We're not just summarizing, who thought what.
Okay.
We want to trace this common thread, this idea of challenging authority. What actually happens when people start questioning the status quo?
Whether it's about power or society or even how the physical world works.
Precisely. It's about asking why and demanding reason over just tradition. We'll see how that connects all these different figures.
Okay, that sounds good. So let's start with that island activity concept you mentioned, the state of nature. Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau. How did they see life without any government or laws?
Well, it really boils down to their basic assumptions about human nature itself. Pessimism versus optimism, basically.
And Hobbes was firmly in the pessimist camp.
Oh, absolutely. Thomas Hobbes, writing after the English Civil War, saw humans as fundamentally selfish, driven by fear, always wanting more power.
So no government means chaos.
Total chaos. A war of all against all. That's where his famous line comes from. Life in that state is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short.
Grim.
Yeah. So for him, the only answer was absolute rule. A powerful sovereign, the Leviathan, to just keep everyone in line and prevent society from collapsing back into that constant war.
But giving one person or group absolute power, isn't that risky too? Trading chaos for potential tyranny.
That's the exact problem John Locke tackles. He's the counter-argument, really.
But the more optimistic.
Definitely more optimistic.
Oh.
Locke believed people are generally reasonable, cooperative, and crucially, he thought we possess natural rights even before government exists.
Life, liberty, and property.
Those are the big ones. And for Locke, government's main job, its only legitimate job, really is to protect those rights.
And it needs permission to do that.
Absolutely. Government operates only by the consent of the governed. That's key. And if it breaks that trust, if it fails to protect those rights,
then the people can change it.
they have the right, even the duty, Locke argued, to alter or abolish it. It's quite radical, but he presents it very logically.
Okay, so Hobbes sees unavoidable chaos needing an iron fist. Locke sees natural rights needing a protective but limited government. Where does Rousseau fit? He seems different again.
Rousseau is sort of the idealist of the three. He actually starts from the opposite place to Hobbes. He thinks humans are naturally good, compassionate, even noble savages, you might say.
But society corrupts them.
That's his core argument. It's society, especially the invention of private property and the inequality it creates, that makes people selfish and unhappy.
So freedom for Rousseau isn't just about individual rights like Locke talked about.
Not exactly. For Rousseau, true freedom comes from participating in the collective, following what he called the general will, the common good of the community.
That sounds complicated. How does the general will work if individuals disagree?
It is complicated and a bit controversial. Rousseau basically suggests that the collective interest is the true interest of every individual, even if they don't realize it. So sometimes an individual might need to be, in his words, forced to be free.
Forced to be free. That sounds like a contradiction.
It does, and it's been interpreted in many ways, some quite authoritarian. But the core idea is subordinating your personal whims to what's best for everyone, a big shift from Locke's focus on individual liberty.
Okay, so those are the foundational blueprints for society. Now let's talk about the next group, the superhero scholars. They seem more focused on, the practical design of a just government.
Exactly. If the first group debated the why and what of government, these thinkers focused on the how. How do you actually structure it to prevent tyranny and protect rights?
And Montesquieu's big idea was about structure, right?
Absolutely. Baron de Montesquieu looked at history, looked at different governments, and concluded that concentrating power was always dangerous. His solution, the separation of powers.
Legislative, executive, judicial.
That's the model. Separate branches, each with its own function, able to check and balance the others. He famously warned, "There is no liberty if the judiciary power be not separated from the legislative and executive." Still incredibly relevant today.
And then there's Voltaire. His focus was different again.
Voltaire was the champion of free speech and religious tolerance. He saw open debate and the ability to question authority, especially the church and monarchy, as absolutely essential.
He used satire a lot, didn't he?
Oh, yes. He used wit as a weapon to expose hypocrisy and absurdity. He understood that controlling what people believe is the first step to controlling their actions. You know his quote, "Those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities." Powerful stuff.
Definitely. And rounding out this group, Immanuel Kant. He seems more philosophical, focused on morality.
Kant provides the ethical underpinning for a lot of modern rights thinking. He wanted a universal moral law.
The categorical imperative.
That's it. His test was act only according to that maxim, whereby you can, at the same time, that it should become a universal law. Basically, what if everyone did this?
Treat others as you want to be treated, but with a more rigorous, logical framework.
Sort of, but it's deeper. It leads to his idea of human dignity, that people are ends in themselves. It never just means to an end. You can't just use people. That's fundamental to our modern understanding of rights.
Okay, this is a great overview, but I want to really zero in on one of these figures now, Mary Wollstonecraft, because she brings a perspective that, well, was largely missing from the guys we've just discussed.
Yes, Wollstonecraft is crucial. Her Hand of Vindication of the Rights of Woman from 1792 is a landmark text. She takes aim squarely at the inequality baked into the system.
And for her, the root cause was education, or lack thereof.
Exactly. She was convinced that the neglected education of women was the grand source of misery. The whole system, she argued, was designed to make women pleasing, but not rational or independent.
She had that really vivid metaphor about flowers.
Yes, it's quite powerful. She compared women to flowers which are planted in too rich a soil, meaning they're cultivated for beauty and delicacy, but their strength and usefulness are sacrificed.
So they look pretty, but lack substance and fade quickly.
Precisely. They fade disregarded on the stalk long before the season when they ought to have arrived at maturity. She said the educational system was designed by men to make women alluring mistresses rather than affectionate wives and rational mothers, equal partners.
That's a direct challenge to someone like Rousseau, isn't it? He thought women's education should be focused on pleasing men and being good wives.
A massive challenge. Wollstonecraft wasn't asking for special treatment. She was demanding the right to develop reason, virtue, and character, the same things valued in men.
She acknowledged physical differences, but argued that shouldn't mean intellectual or moral inferiority.
Right. She conceded that men are, in general, physically stronger, calling it a law of nature. But she accused men of using that as an excuse to sink us still lower, denying women the chance to cultivate their minds.
And when she said women should become more masculine,
she wasn't talking about wanting women to be physically like men. She meant masculine in the sense of acquiring the virtues then associated with men: reason, independence, moral strength, intellectual capability. The qualities that ennoble the human character, regardless of sex. She wanted respect based on ability, not just appearance or societal role.
that insistence on reason and evidence, challenging traditional roles, it actually provides a neat bridge to our second group of heroes, doesn't it?
It really does. Because we're shifting now from political and social structures to the structure of knowledge itself, particularly in science.
And looking at some figures who maybe don't always get the spotlight they deserve in the standard story of the scientific revolution.
Exactly. We need to talk about the foundational work done, particularly during the Islamic Golden Age. These scholars were, in many ways, the invisible giants on whose shoulders later European scientists stood.
They preserved and translated ancient knowledge, but they also added to it significantly, right?
Immensely. And crucially, they also challenged ancient authorities. Take Ibn al-Haytham, often known as Alhazen in the West, working around the 11th century.
Optics, right.
Yes, the father of modern optics. But more than that, he fundamentally challenged the accepted Greek model of vision, the idea from Euclid and Aristotle that eyes emitted rays to see things.
Which seems counterintuitive now, but was the standard view for centuries.
For over 1,000 years. And Ibn al-Haytham didn't just say it was wrong, he proved it was wrong using rigorous experiments.
The scientific method, basically. Hypothesis, testing, observation.
Absolutely. Centuries before Bacon or Galileo formalized it in Europe, he used things like the camera obscura, the pinhole camera effect, to demonstrate conclusively that light travels from objects into the eye in straight lines.
Wow. And he had a whole philosophy about questioning what you read.
He did. He famously advised scholars to make himself an enemy of all that he reads and attack it from every side, a call for radical skepticism and reliance on empirical evidence. That's a direct link back to the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason over tradition.
Okay, and this kind of rigorous work, especially in fields like astronomy that relied on optics, needed advanced mathematics.
Which brings us to Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, working in the 9th century at the House of Wisdom in Baghdad.
Algebra.
He's literally the father of algebra. The word comes from al-Jab in the title of his groundbreaking book. His work provided systematic methods, algorithms, another word derived from his name, algorithmy for solving equations.
Which was crucial for all sorts of practical applications, I imagine.
Huge. For engineering, commerce, inheritance calculations, and critically, for the complex calculations needed in astronomy.
But maybe even more important was his role in spreading the number system we use today.
That might be his biggest legacy, yeah. He championed the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, including the revolutionary concept of zero and place value notation.
The 1, 2, 3, and crucially, 0 that we all use.
Exactly. Try doing complex multiplication or long division with Roman numerals. It's a nightmare. This system, which al-Khwarizmi helped popularize and transmit to the wider world, including eventually Europe, was absolutely essential for the development of higher mathematics and science.
It's the operating system for quantitative science, really.
A great way to put it.
Yeah.
And we should also mention Jabir ibn Hayyan, known as Geber in Europe, a pioneer in chemistry.
Experimental chemistry.
Yes, he really emphasized hands-on experimentation. His motto was essentially, experiment is the door by which we reach knowledge. He wasn't just theorizing, he was developing practical chemical processes.
Like distillation.
Distillation, crystallization, filtration. He's credited with discovering or describing important substances like sulfuric acid and nitric acid. He moved alchemy towards becoming a truly experimental science.
So putting it all together, these Islamic scholars provided the methods, the mathematical tools, and the experimental mindset. How does this connect back directly to the later European scientific revolution figures like Copernicus or Newton?
The connection is direct and profound, though often understated. It's about collective learning across cultures and centuries. Copernicus, Galileo, Kepler, Newton, they didn't start from scratch.
They built on what came before.
They built on a huge body of knowledge that had been translated, synthesized, and significantly advanced in the Islamic world. For instance, Copernicus benefited from sophisticated astronomical models developed centuries earlier.
You mentioned the Tusi couple in the outline.
Right, that's a specific example. Nasir al-Din al-Tusi, a 13th century Persian astronomer, developed a clever geometric theorem, the Tusi couple, that could explain the apparent wobbles in planetary orbits mathematically, without resorting to Ptolemy's complex epicycles, but still within a geocentric-ish framework.
So it was like a mathematical stepping stone?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It provided a mathematical tool that Copernicus later adapted and used within his heliocentric model. It shows how ideas were transmitted and repurposed. Similarly, the advanced mathematics popularized by al-Khwarizmi was the essential language they all used.
And Ibn al-Haytham's emphasis on evidence and experiment.
That skeptical, evidence-based approach became the bedrock of the scientific revolution. When Newton famously said he stood on the shoulders of giants, those giants undoubtedly included figures like Ibn al-Haytham and al-Khwarizmi, alongside the ancient Greeks and his European predecessors.
So whether it's Locke demanding government by consent, Wollstonecraft demanding rational education for women, or Ibn al-Haytham demanding experimental proof for vision, the common thread is questioning assumptions.
Questioning assumptions and demanding that claims, whether political or scientific, be backed by reason and evidence, not just tradition or authority. That's the shared heritage.
That really ties it all together nicely. It seems the biggest impact of all these thinkers across philosophy and science was this willingness to challenge what was simply handed down.
Absolutely. They paved the way for a world where reason, evidence, and critical thinking could, at least in theory, take precedence over unquestioned dogma.
Oh.
It's a monumental shift in perspective.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, from the state of nature to the structure of government, women's rights, and the foundations of science. Let's leave our listeners with something to think about.
All right. We talked about Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau debating the state of nature for individuals when there's no government.
Right, the island scenario.
So here's the final thought. Think about the world today. We don't really have a global government, do we? Powerful nations interact, cooperate sometimes, conflict other times.
An international system without a supreme authority.
So are nations currently operating in a kind of international state of nature? And if you think they are, which of those philosophers, Hobbes, Locke, or Rousseau, offers the best lens to understand it?
Is it a Hobbesian free-for-all, a Lockean world of states trying to protect their property and rights with occasional disputes, or maybe a Rousseauian situation where global interactions have somehow corrupted an underlying potential for cooperation.
Exactly. Which vision best captures the dynamics between nations on the world stage today? Something to definitely mull over.
A perfect place to wrap up. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.